Michel Foucault was a French philosopher who changed the way people think about power. Before Foucault, most people imagined power as something simple, held by kings, governments, police, judges, armies, and prisons. It pressed down on ordinary people from above. Foucault thought this was far too simple. He believed power isn't only found in governments. It's found in schools, hospitals, prisons, offices, families, social rules, and even in how we learn to think about ourselves. His 1975 book, Discipline and Punish, traced how modern punishment shifted from public violence to quieter systems of surveillance and normalization. This is what makes Foucault disturbing. He doesn't just ask who controls you from the outside. He asks how you learn to control yourself. Born in 1926 in Poitiers, France, Foucault became one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. Writing about madness, medicine, prisons, sexuality, and power. His central claim: modern societies don't mainly control people through chains and executions. They control people by training them to become certain kinds of subjects. Foucault isn't just saying governments lie or police have power. His deeper point is that power is woven into ordinary life through habits, routines, categories, and institutions that appear completely normal. Power doesn't only say, "You are not allowed." It says, "This is who you are." It tells a child whether he's gifted, slow, obedient, difficult, or dangerous. Labels that seem neutral, but are really ways of organizing human beings. Power produces people, not just represses them. We usually think of power as something that stops us, forbidding, punishing, censoring, but Foucault believed modern power is subtler than that. It doesn't just block behavior, it creates it. It shapes how people move, speak, work, desire, and understand their own identity. A school doesn't just teach math. It teaches children to sit still, raise their hands, arrive on time, and understand themselves through rankings. A workplace doesn't just pay people. It teaches them to measure their worth through productivity and performance. A hospital doesn't just heal bodies. It classifies them, records them, and teaches people to see themselves as cases and risk profiles. Foucault isn't saying these institutions are evil. His point is more uncomfortable. Even institutions that help us also shape us. They create useful, obedient, self-monitoring people. The most effective control is the control you stop noticing. This is why Foucault became so interested in prisons, not as something separate from society, but as an extreme, visible version of something that exists everywhere in milder form. Discipline works by organizing bodies in space and time. Where to stand, when to move, how fast to work, how to be evaluated. It doesn't need constant force. It trains people until they start correcting themselves. A person watched by force may resist. A person who has internalized the rules obeys without needing to be forced at all. He monitors himself before anyone else has to. This is where Foucault's use of the Panopticon comes in. Jeremy Bentham designed a prison where cells surround a central watchtower. The prisoner can be seen, but never knows for certain if he's being watched at any given moment. So he starts behaving as if he always is. The genius of the Panopticon isn't that someone is always watching. It's that someone might be. That possibility alone is enough. The prisoner becomes his own guard. Foucault argued this logic spreads far beyond prisons. A student behaves because a teacher may evaluate him. A worker performs because a manager may review him. A person online curates himself because strangers may judge, comment, or mock. This is why Foucault feels more relevant today than in his own lifetime. We live under constant, often invisible observation, tracking our steps, sleep, productivity, and appearance, frequently mistaking this self-surveillance for freedom. Norms control more than laws do. A law tells you what's illegal. A norm tells you what's normal. Laws punish criminals. Norms produce shame. Norms don't need a courtroom. They live in classrooms, offices, media, and casual conversation, defining what a good student, a healthy body, or a successful life looks like. Once a norm is accepted, people measure themselves against it without being forced. They force themselves. Power and knowledge are connected. Foucault didn't see knowledge as pure truth floating above society. He was interested in how knowledge gets produced, who gets to speak with authority, and how expert categories shape human life. The idea often called power knowledge. This doesn't mean all knowledge is fake, or that doctors and scientists know nothing. It means knowledge is never socially innocent. Once a society creates categories like mental illness, criminality, or deviant behavior, it also creates institutions and experts equipped to intervene in people's lives. A person becomes a case, a file, a diagnosis, a statistic. A hospital helps people, but it also classifies them. A school educates children, but it also ranks and disciplines them. A prison punishes crime, but it also manufactures the category of the criminal. Foucault isn't arguing we can live without institutions. We can't. He's arguing we should stop pretending institutions are neutral just because they speak in polite, caring language. Modern power often speaks in the language of help, protection, and improvement. Sometimes it really does help. But Foucault teaches us to ask, who is being observed, classified, corrected, or made useful? And who is being made ashamed? Control in Foucault's sense happens whenever people learn to see themselves through systems of judgment. The student sees himself as a grade. The worker sees himself as a performance score. The patient sees himself as a diagnosis. The self becomes something to manage, like a brand or a project. We like to believe we're freer than people in the past. No public torture, no forced careers, seemingly limitless self-expression. Foucault doesn't deny that freedom exists. He asks what kind of power has grown alongside it. Modern power doesn't always command directly. It invites us to improve, to be authentic, productive, and visible. But these invitations can become their own form of control. The modern person isn't just told to obey. He's told to optimize, to become fitter, more marketable, more emotionally intelligent, more aware of his own flaws. It looks like freedom because no one holds a whip. But the pressure is still real. It's just internal now. Resistance begins with seeing power. Foucault didn't believe power could be escaped entirely. It's woven into relationships, institutions, and language itself. In The History of Sexuality, he argued power shouldn't be imagined only as something held by the state, but as something circulating through every social relationship. This sounds hopeless, but it isn't quite. If power is everywhere, resistance can be too. We resist when we notice the categories that define us, question the standards we were taught to obey, and ask who benefits from a given norm. For Foucault, freedom isn't a pure space outside power. It's a practice within power. The difficult, ongoing work of questioning how we're being shaped. This is hard because the deepest forms of control feel completely natural. A person may believe he freely wants the career, body, and status that power has already made desirable to him. He can obey perfectly while feeling completely independent. Foucault offers no comforting villain to blame. Power isn't located in one place. It circulates through what we call truth and what we call normal. That's why he remains controversial. Some see him as a thinker who makes people distrust all institutions and all truth. Others see him as essential, someone who reveals how power hides inside the things we take for granted. Either way, his question is hard to avoid. How much of what you call yourself was actually given to you by systems you never chose? Your school taught you what intelligence looks like. Your workplace taught you what usefulness looks like. Your culture taught you what success and beauty look like. And after enough time, you may believe all of it came from inside you. This doesn't mean every rule is bad or every institution oppressive. It means we should be suspicious of norms that pretend to be simply nature. Foucault's philosophy is uncomfortable because it removes innocence from everyday life. The classroom, the hospital, the office, the family, and the self all become political spaces, not in the sense of elections, but in the deeper sense of shaping human beings. His message isn't that you're helpless, it's that you're being shaped, and the first step is noticing it. You're being shaped when you compete for approval, measure your life by productivity, feel shame for missing a norm, or police your own thoughts before anyone else has to. Control in the modern world rarely looks like control. It looks like education, health, professionalism, and common sense. The prison was only the beginning of the lesson. The deeper lesson is that a society can become a machine for producing people who watch themselves. And the most effective form of power isn't the one that crushes you from outside. It's the one that teaches you to become the guard of your own life.